Welcome to episode 8 of the Soccer Card Collective. I'm James at Mad City Collector on Instagram. Here for another episode. This episode I'm calling Panini World Cup cards before Prizm. Some of the motivation for doing this episode stem from my own kind of ignorance of the Panini card history prior to Prizm, because I was very aware of the 2006 and 2010 sets, but I failed to mention the 1998 and 2002 sets that did exist, but are not quite as in, I think, the mainstream consciousness and my consciousness, because the visibility of the 2006 and 2010 sets are often related to Lionel Messi and Cristiano being so held heavily collected in the space. So I thought it was would be a good time to look, back at just kind of this run and just what cards are out there. Mostly from a grading standpoint, because I think a lot of the cards from those sets are, there are a lot of cards that are still raw, that haven't been worth grading. And so, but the graded population, most easily kind of viewed at PSA, does give you some idea to kind of almost the value and popularity of, because the higher popularity and kind of corollary to that value, kind of pushes people to start grading cards, and some people like to put the graded card sets together and things like that, in certain grades or team sets and things like that. So it gives a good idea for what's out there with these sets, even if it's not a perfect assessment of how many cards are still out there. So I guess without further ado, I was going to start with going back to the original, Panini World Cup set from 1998. And I, when I was, just as kind of a first look at, what seemed to be an interesting sale to me, and as far as the set went, was this PSA 10 version of the Patrick Kluivert from the set. While Patrick Kluivert was a fantastic player for the Netherlands, he isn't necessarily a household name unless you're a real soccer head of the era. And some people even maybe heard of him just because of his son being a more contemporary player. But anyway, this PSA 10 copy sold at auction for $264. And if you look back at prior, card sales, scrolling through, kind of the card ladder, database, you really don't see anything anywhere close to that. And if you actually, sort by price, most of the top sales from the 1998 World Cup are from the sticker set for Thierry Henry, original Ronaldo Rosario, and Zinedine Zidane. And that's kind of an interesting point about this set, is that neither of those three players are in the main Panini World Cup card set, which kind of points to maybe why it wasn't so noticeable to me. There are cards in a Panini Nestle release, which I realized, and this Azuri release, but none really in the main trading card set, World Cup set. So while there are World Cup cards out there that produced by Panini, they weren't part of the what is a 100 card base set for the 1998 World Cup. Like I said, if you go back and look at highest price for some of these cards, like most of what you're seeing are the boxes themselves, and the stickers, and really the cards have kind of been an afterthought as far as collecting the 1998 World Cup. And you go down, I mean, the Kluivert might be the highest selling public sale of a card from that set. And if you go back to the PSA kind of graded database, the whole set, 100 card base set, only there is a Japanese edition which they also kind of lump, which goes a little bit further. But there's a 100 card base set, and there's only 292 total cards from the entire set graded by PSA. It is interesting to see which players have been graded the most. I think the most graded player from the set is Alessandro Del Piero, and then after that, he has 65 total cards graded, 10 PSA 10s, 28 PSA 9s, to give you an idea. So, and then there's 21 PSA 8s. So really, the majority, like a good portion of the graded pop is in the higher grades. So it seems that people are maybe being selective about which ones they send off for grading, which I think is smart with base cards of this nature. And then as you go to other, the other somewhat highly graded players are, Peter Schmeichel with 18 total graded, 3 PSA 10s, 21 Cafu's, only 1 PSA 10. And like I said, as far as the Patrick Kluivert sale, I was talking about Patrick Kluivert. Let's see, how many he's number 86. So he only has 10 graded and then that's the only PSA 10 copy. So whether it's a Holland Netherlands fan who is looking for it, or whether someone who is trying to put together as many PSA 10s from the set, it'd be interesting to know who was bidding on that. That's definitely an interesting one. But I imagine it's probably some sort of a Netherlands fan who probably was going after that. But yeah, I mean, but it's interesting to me that that $264 sale is likely the highest. So let me look at Del Piero, because since he seems to be the most popular player from the set, what his highest selling, he has a little bit higher pop, so maybe that makes PSA 1 pop for the Kluivert may have really pushed that up. But yeah, so the highest recorded sale for a PSA 10 Del Piero is $160, and there have been other sales. I guess the most recent sale of Del Piero in a graded, let's see, we'll go so PSA 9, it went as recently as February for 48. Let's see, what's the last PSA 10? Okay, let me just grade by. So using Card Ladder to help me sort kind of through these sales. So all graded sales, same grading company. And so the last PSA 10 sale, it's been a while. So lots of PSA 8s, PSA 9s. Last PSA 10 sale was in March of 2025 for $100. So, it kind of shows you with the Pop 1 from this set, it can really give a boost to these. But, the Del Piero, which is the highest, number of graded highest card, for the whole of any player in the set. There's 10 for him. So it kind of, certainly brings down, I guess, the desirability for collectors. So I thought that was interesting. But I guess my main point I gleaned from this set is just the checklist really wasn't full of a chaseable name. I think, if there's a Thierry Henry in the set, I imagine it would have been really popular to go after. But there are other players that are really notable, like Dennis Bergkamp, Roberto Baggio. They weren't, they're nowhere close to rookie cards for those players. Fabio Cannavaro, if you're an Italian fan, that's a relatively early card for him. But some of the real notable names just aren't in the set, so that's really hurts the visibility of this set. And yeah, 292 cards graded for the whole 100 card set is kind of wild. So still, this set's certainly under the radar, and if you're a collector of any of the players that I was kind of mentioning, I mean, this is definitely a fun set to potentially collect. As you go through, there are a fair number of raw sales, and so just even collecting the full 100 card set could be a fun endeavor. But yeah, and they're good looking cards, good action shots, like kind of classic, what we call the pre-modern era type cards. So if that's your aesthetic, these are really fun cards to collect and appreciate. If you move on to 2002, you start seeing more of the players that were kind of that are notable from this era, and I think as a result, we see more than 5 times the number of cards graded, probably close to 6 times. Yeah, actually 6 times the number of cards graded from the 1998 set, with a total of 1,761. And this is as part of a checklist, a set of 140. The set also includes kind of logos, badges from the countries, which are collectible, for the fans and everything like that, as well as kind of commemorative, uh, mascots and team shots from some of the winning teams dating back to Italy in 1934. And yeah, so when you look at this checklist and the most graded names, you start looking at, again, Cafu, 43 graded, Roberto Carlos, 63, Rivaldo, 79, Ronaldo Nazario. So one of the, obviously popular names from the era. This was, their World Cup winning year, 344 for him, graded. Unfortunately, no Ronaldinho in this set. This was kind of his ascension onto the kind of public stage. Ballack, 37, Zinedine Zidane, 237 total. So, big two so far. Thierry Henry, only 106, which is kind of interesting to me. I thought he might have been a little more popular, but Ronaldo with 344 and Zidane with 237 are kind of far and away the most graded players. Maldini, 54, Francesco Totti, 76. So these all just kind of give you Figo, 80. So these are all really obviously top players. And then, for the US fans out there, kind of the player to collect from the set, from this era, Landon Donovan, he's kind of such a notable name in kind of the US history of the national team of the last, of the 21st century. So it makes sense that, this is being his, kind of his first World Cup card, but makes it something, desirable for the US fans. But so as you see, the population count and popularity, stems from particularly Zidane and Ronaldo, but it seems like there are other obviously really popular names out there like Maldini and Figo, players like that who just weren't part of the 1998 set. So just kind of just a bunch more really notable collectible players from this set. So it makes it, just get graded more. Again, these are, kind of great looking cards. When you go back to sales, lots of sales of raw cards from this set. So when we look at graded pops, it's there's probably you can definitely collect this as like a raw set as well. So just looking at kind of what the sales look like for the popular players, like so for Ronaldo, if you go in his by price for the 2002 World Cup. Let's see here. So the base set. Okay, so some of the highest sets are one of those autograph Ronaldo cards that are really rare out there. They're numbered to 100, which not particularly rare nowadays, but yeah, these are very difficult to find, and you see them occasionally, on collectors' pages, but anyway, if you look at just the base card from the set, PSA 10, from the Ronaldo has done as high as, $1,250. The pop of it for the PSA 10 is 23 now, 137 PSA 9s. And if we go back to just the the same grade, we'll just look at PSA 10 copies because it looks like there've been enough to kind of do an appraisal of those. The last copy sold as recently as was it May 6th? So I sold today actually for a fixed price from the PSA Vault for $850, which is a really strong sale. The last best offer from the PSA Vault looks like was from the 24th. So less than 2 weeks ago for $650. So interesting that someone would just go ahead and buy one for $850. When it looks like these were kind of going more in the 600. So, going back, actually before January 2026, where one went for 600. The last PSA 10 sale publicly before that was like 579.50 in September of 2024, and then there's another sale August 27th of 2024 for 434, kind of during the down period. During those peak period, some of the peak periods in 2022, you saw sales, that $1,250 sale that I mentioned earlier, but then kind of subsequent copies were 642, 676. So since those, other than the outlying sale of kind of 1250, like these since that boom period, these really haven't dropped off that much, and partially because there was that huge gap, like over a year gap, between PSA 10 sales publicly. And so Pop 23, not super rare by kind of pre-modern standards. So there are copies out there, but it's also, in the grand scheme of things, not a very large PSA 10 pop. The next one I wanted to look at was Zidane. He so as far as his grade, so we'll sort by price. So PSA 10. So his highest PSA 10 was June 25th, 2021. And so the total pop for him, so he has 32 PSA 10. So even though he has an overall lower PSA population, he has a few more PSA 10s, 32. So a few sales of the PSA 10 in the same grade. Okay, well, I like to sort by date sold to kind of see what the trajectory of a lot of these are. So the most recent sale, 23rd February, fairly recently, about 2 weeks ago, or a little less than 2 weeks ago, sold for $217. So that's a fair bit of the way down from the top sale, which was actually the very first public sale in June of 2021, which was 610. It's kind of steadily crawled down, and sales were still in the 300s, 375, 336, 330 in 2022, and then by kind of May of 2022, sales had gone down to 179.50, 132.50. But by the end of 2022, the last sale from 2022 was July 24th, which was 191. So kind of that's where it settled out. Then the next sale after that was April 2023, which was around 190. Kind of sales for this kind of bottomed out in 2024 during that down period, all the way down at $81. So took quite a ride down. And but between that sale on the 24th and October of 2024, another sale best offer at 175. So kind of demand started ticking up a little bit around that time. And then by the time we get to 2025, we saw, probably a good, was it 8 months between sales? Someone decided to bin one at 300, and then auctions in 2025 on, at the same auction block, sold for 167 and 122. So these kind of started out pretty strong during like kind of the boom era of soccer in 21, 22, but kind of gradually gone down. But this most recent best offer, 217, suggests a little bit of maybe a kick up in interest for some of these. So it's on people's radars. People aren't just waiting for them to come to auction. There's some that people are throwing in best offers for. So that's a sign that people are really looking for these cards. And certainly, collecting the big name players from this set in PSA 10s is something, definitely a way people go about collecting some of these pre-modern sets, going for that PSA 10 grading scarcity. So the next one I was going to look at was, Thierry Henry. If you look back, let's see. So his highest sale of any of the cards is a PSA 8 from January 2022, which sold for $214. So interesting. It wasn't a PSA 10. So let me look at the pop on this. So does he have any PSA 10s? That's not the right one. It's the USA exclusive version. So interesting. So that's the rare USA exclusive version. So okay, yeah. So here's so it's not even the base set for the set that I'm talking about, the 2002 Panini World Cup, main set. So the highest sale of the main set is the is 182.50 from July of 2021. Um, and that sold for 100. Yeah, it sold July 25th, 2021. And so let's look at the pops. I wonder if I know PSA 10. No, that's not. That's the wrong one again. Oh, yeah, okay. Here we go. So yeah, 105, like I had said previously, PSA 10s for the regular 2002 Panini World Cup set. So there's only 10 PSA 5s, so fewer than the Ronaldo and Zidane's, but he is the third most graded player from the set. And there's only been two sales of the PSA 10 copies ever. The last one being in December of 2022, where it sold for $76, as kind of the market was strongly correcting right around the World Cup then. The other one, the one before that, in November of 2021 for 181. So even in that short span, or in that about a year span from 20, between those, it dropped. But there's only two sales to go by, and one hasn't sold for over 3 years. So I imagine if we saw one out there now with a PSA 10 pop of 5, I imagine probably do pretty well just because we haven't seen one in so long. But so that gives you kind of an idea, like, where these cards are as far as, some very notable players that you can go after, and see how the top players kind of PSA 10 copies perform. And I guess, and if you look at the total set, again, let's see if there are any of them. Let's see, the highest sale from all the autograph cards are the ones from the 2002 World Cup sets. So yeah, that's I think, like I said, that one outlier 1250 from Ronaldo was the highest, but yeah, really the other high ones are all Ronaldo, and him being the golden ball winner that year. You can see why he would be a popular one. Here's Landon Donovan's sale, PSA 10 for $750. So someone got a little frisky collecting Landon at that time. So that's interesting. Let's see. Just out of curiosity. So 22 PSA 10s for him. The most recent one going for $320 in August of 2025. So there's been a little bit of time. There was one for $600 in April. So that was kind of an outlier, but most of them seem to be in the 200s, or a few in the 400s in 23 and 24. But yeah, the PSA 10s for Landon Donovan don't sell very frequently, despite having a graded PSA 10 graded pop of 22. So yeah, so still Landon, still out there in the media, so still visible, and like I said, one of the most recognizable U.S. national team players of the 21st century. All right, so moving on to the 2006 World Cup set, which most people, I think, at this point are very aware of, because these was the first year that Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo appeared in Panini World Cup set. I kind of, when I was diving into kind of looking at cards, I thought this was a cool, almost like the World Cup rookie card. Obviously, this is their first World Cup stickers too. But yeah, this, Panini kind of upped the ante for this set in terms of the size of the base set. So the base set was out of 205, including the checklist cards. Again, they have the cards for the venues, as well as the emblems for each national team. So they started really, I think it must have been, maybe popularity and some of their products were increasing during this time, and they were kind of really upping the ante. There were 13,000 cards, so that's a big step up from the 1,700 from 2002. Again, largely owing to the Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo cards. But I think there was just more of this. There was more demand for this set at this time. They had been making more card sets for La Liga, and well, even Portugal and places like that. So they were, I think their cards were becoming kind of more notable and popular at this time. So this kind of was almost you know just a preview for kind of what was to come as far as kind of up in the ante for soccer cards. So if you look at the graded pops on the most popular players, Messi, 1,874, 137 PSA 10s, 493 PSA 9s. So yeah, the entire greatest pop of Messi is larger than the entire set from 2002. Um, and and then Cristiano Ronaldo, so Messi at 1874, and then Cristiano Ronaldo has a similar number if I can get down to him. Um, let's see here. There he is. 1,636, so on par. 158 PSA 10s, 415 PSA 9s. So the 154 PSA 10s, it's interesting because that's pretty different. Or it's I think what was Messi's again? Let me see here. So Messi's was 137. So I guess that's pretty similar. So over 100 for a lot of these, kind of popular players. Again, this is Ronaldinho's first year. He had 609. Ronaldo Nazario 660. So a lot of notable players from this set. Didier Drogba. Even the England players, David Beckham had 504. Wayne Rooney had 333. England, didn't have licensing at this point with Panini, so you're going for the license-free cards. Zidane, again, another popular one at 617. So you kind of get a feel for kind of but tons of notable names in this set, tons of them. Just going down the checklist. And given the bigger, base set, you're able to kind of encompass more of the top players on many different national teams. And so, the Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo cards, specifically have really gone for a ride in terms of kind of they had a really big boom during the 21-22 era. Cristiano Ronaldo sold it looks like as much as 15,000, and Messi also for 15, upwards of 15,000. Actually, no. Here's one that went all the way up. Okay, let's see. I should just go to the top. So it looks like everyone puts Messi in the title for the unopened boxes. So the highest one went up to 22,000 at best offer. The highest auction price realized was 15,020. So that was in the peak boom era of kind of early 2021, where those sales were happening. But during kind of the correction, these were some of the biggest cards to drop off. As I mentioned, the Cristiano Ronaldo went up as high as 14,400. So if you just take out Messi and go as far as like the trajectory of kind of how these cards have gone, you go all the way. Like I said, you go back, you get the sales all the way up to 22,000, and the highest auction price 15,000. And by the time, let's see, at what point did they drop off? So let me go to PSA 10. I'm sure there's one around here somewhere. No, that's the sticker. All right, let me go to pop. All right. All right, and so by date, the last PSA 10 sold for 5,000 fixed price February 17th, and then right before that 5,000. So it looks like the last 1, 2, 3, 4 that have sold in 2000 or in 2026 have all gone for 5,000, around 5,000, within a couple $100 of $5,000. So pretty stable between those sales, despite 4 kind of recent sales. Like I said, if you go all the way back to 2021, there's been tons of sales of these PSA 10s. Very transacted cards, but very collectible, being his first Panini World Cup card. I think around 2021, I bought a raw copy that I graded and ended up getting a PSA 8 on it because I thought this was, like I said, thought this was a cool, a cool way to, kind of collect Messi early on. It wasn't crazy expensive, um, but my PSA copy probably isn't worth what I paid for the raw copy at this point, or maybe it's close now, given the recent rebound. But yeah, so let's see when was this inflection point? So you see these sales. They don't even have the $22,000 sale in here, so maybe it wasn't validated, but they do capture the $13,200 sale in April of 2021, which is when all the a lot of the action was happening. But then you see it kind of drop off even by the end of 2021 as more of these hit the market, and it kind of by February of or by December 2021 and then February of 22, they were going for around 6,000, and then as things continued to correct, we saw sales as low as 2,640 in 2022. Things ticked up around the World Cup, I guess. People kind of speculating on what would happen there. Went all the way up to 6,700. Kind of ended up, selling, kind of for around that value several times around just leading up to the 2022 World Cup. And then right after the 2022 World Cup, things were kind of holding steady at in the 4,000s, 5,000s, but kind of as things were fully correcting, we saw sales as low as 3,400 in January of 2023. And, but surprisingly, I hadn't really looked at this, a lot of this data before, but sales were, kind of holding steady in the 5s and 4s. You do see some outlier sales, 3,000 in the 3,000s. As things, as a bunch of these were still selling. Oh, here's one that was fixed price at 2,000, 3,000. So that they did end up, after holding the kind of steady at, 5 or 6,000 for a while, they really did, kind of drop off half during kind of the full correction period of 2023, going all the way down, into the kind of mid to low 2000s. I don't know, did it ever get below 2000? No, it got right at 2000 at a Fanatics Weekly. Here's one to 199, 1,800, 1,500. So these really continue to drop off. And so I think 1,500 looks like it was the low point for these. And, it's quite a rebound to get back up to 5, kind of that 5,000 range for these. So, it's kind of a renaissance. There are, these are attainable, like you see them out there, you see auctions for them, you see them available, but especially in the PSA 10 copy, they are, continue to be popular. And, rightfully so, being, now a World Cup winner. As far as Cristiano Ronaldo, let's, kind of look at him being the next, his, like I said, his highest. So we'll do the PSA 10 for the same grade. So high price, like I said, 14,400. If you look at his most recent sale, 2,550 from February 26th at auction. So about half the price of what Messi's going for, which is kind of interesting. Relatively close, total pops for PSA 10. So as far as this set goes, it seems like, Messi definitely clear. I mean, in general, Messi is a clear kind of, premium over Cristiano Ronaldo. But for this set, looks like he's about double. I imagine the trajectory for, these PSA 10s, kind of follow a similar pattern to Messi. We start seeing, kind of low points in a lot of these sales at 861.96 at auction in 2023, which looks like the lowest sale for, oh no, here's one, 795 at auction in 2024. So we were, seeing significant downturns in a lot of these. And so this, recent price of 2,500 is, a threefold increase from kind of the low point during when the market was kind of in its down period. So again, so yeah, this is, despite kind of, like I said, relatively high pops for some of these pre-modded cards of 154. Like grand scheme of things, not crazy, but these are still doing fairly strong and have had a definite resurgence. and along with a lot of the other Messi and Ronaldo cards recently. So, yeah, again, I do like the design on this set, and it's the classic action shots, and the other interesting, the other fun thing is there are let me who's a good sub. All right, so yeah, so there is a foil version of for some of the players in this set. Um, that for some of the notable names, Ronaldinho is one I just pulled up. So let me just search his name. So for him being the star of the one of the stars of the 2022 World Cup, they they put him in a foil version, and if you look at the sales of those, like they have done intermittently well. So PSA 10 copies, so same grade. All right, so the high, I guess at the peak, the PSA 10 Ronaldinho had gone for 122.50 in 2021. Now at the PSA pop of 104. Chronologically, player, even with such an iconic player of Ronaldinho and kind of the foil version. Okay, let's see here. I want to look at the PSA 10. Okay. Oh no, I was completely wrong. I was looking at PSA 8 copies. All right, same grade. All right, so actually, okay, so the highest for this back in was $399 in September 2025. That's kind of an outlier. Most of the sales, they kind of jumped all over the place from the 200s to 300s. Okay, so but the all-time high sale, okay, so this makes more sense, was 700 back in September of 2021. And so these kind of $200, $300 sales more recently are down from that period. There were other sales at like 550 in that time period too. So that was kind of the peak pricing time. And it looks like, some of these for when is low, it even got under 100, it looks like, scrolling back through 2023. Looks like the lowest price point was 98.40, November 2024. And so, yeah, going back up, with that 399 sale from September, 369 from another one from September, a 225 from August of 2025, July 2025, one of 330, another one 225. All those are significantly up in. So yeah, so the interest in the set does appear to have kind of come back, and like the foil versions kind of add some aesthetic appeal to cards from just like the regular base versions from this set that you see with the Messi and Ronaldo's, or Cristiano Ronaldo's. But again, so yeah, I mean, this is like, as I may have mentioned this in prior episodes, but just having Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo in sets is always going to bring more attention to these sets, and even bring up the collectability of other players in the set. And if we move on to 2010, it doesn't have kind of the appeal of being, of having the first quote unquote Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo cards, and there's no other real kind of rookies that all-time greats necessarily that in my mind necessarily move the needle the same way Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo do. And it kind of follows with the number of total graded cards in the set, with only 4,000. So that's after having kind of increased up to, what was it, 17,000 or no, 13,000 for the 2006 set. We took a third of those cards have been graded for the 2010 set. So it just kind of shows, just like, I guess, the overall appeal of the checklist, and nature, kind of like I said, the nature of the and so or it could just be that they didn't print as much of this. So maybe they overshot in 2006, and this was kind of a correction, and they produced a more reasonable number. As you could guess, the most graded players from the set, Cristiano Ronaldo with a total pop of 396, and Messi with So let's see, where is Messi at the end of the set? And Messi has a similar number. If I can find him, Cristiano Ronaldo 396, and Messi. I'm sorry, this is great audio listening. Not many players are over 3 digits. Wayne Rooney has 101, one of the few kind of 3-digit total graded copies. And then Messi, where are you? Kaká. Let's see. Oh, there he is. 430 Messi. So those are by far, they were by far, like as you would suspect, the highest graded copies. It looks like Wayne Rooney with 101 is one of the only other players from the set who has 3 digits. Thierry Henry has 165, Benzema 107, being kind of an early card for him. So I guess people have kind of drawn to that for him. Maybe Ballon d'Or winner, but not necessarily kind of considered an all-time great necessarily. Kind of. But yeah, so it's interesting. The checklist just wasn't as full of kind of names, players like Ronaldo Nazario and Zidane, having left the game, or not in this set. But it's interesting to me. Let's see, was the Spanish team in this set? Yeah, so the Spanish checklist, did have Xavi. Let's see here. They had Iniesta, Xavi, Sergio Ramos, Iker Casillas. I mean, that'd probably be a fun way to collect a set, given this was the legendary team of the tournament and everything. But yeah, none of them have a total graded PSA pop of over 196. Iniesta is the highest. And the Iker Casillas only 23. I mean, a legend and only 23 graded for him. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, so that, I mean, for me, that'd be, collecting the team set for the winning team would be, kind of a really fun, these would be fun cards to get for the Spanish members. And so, looking at, like, if you go to the sales, maybe won't go bore you with the numbers quite as much, but Messi 2000, let's see here. I can't be right. Oh, no, I did Prizm. No wonder there's no such thing as 2010 Prizm. All right, I was confused there for a second. Okay, so in this version, the Messi does have the foil back, like you saw with the 2006 version, which is kind of a fun wrinkle. If you look at the PSA 10, 117 PSA 10 copies, and if you view the same grade, high price for these back in late 2020, 2021. Actually, that's a real outlier sale, 6,877. The second highest was 3,700 in 2021. So these took, kind of after that kind of spike middle finger, as people call it, they definitely came down. And but yeah, if you go most recently, they've been going around the 14, 15, some upwards of near close to 1,700 range, which is up from even like, kind of lower. The sales have kind of been all over the place. Sales have been close to 1,000 or as high as 1,700. So a little all over the place, a little volatile with these. But, settling in that kind of mid thousands range, it seems like. Let's see. And like I said, I kind of like to look at, during kind of the down period, like, what did a card like this go down to, and all the way down into the 660. I see a 600, 678. So looks like 600 was probably the low point. So yeah, again, like the Messi market, this is kind of a barometer of the Messi market in general, kind of going up 2 to 3 times. So yeah, so as interest in Messi increased, this is definitely one people like to go to. Like I said, the foil design on the Messi, this version of the Messi is a fun aesthetic feature. Again, like I said in the past, there's no numbering on any of these, so these are all kind of graded scarcity going on. And they've, kind of imagine the same deal with the Cristiano Ronaldo. So PSA 10, look at the peak. Oh, so a peak, one went for 7,600, other 4,300, 3,900. So some of these went really, really strong at that time. But that 7,600 definitely a pretty significant outlier. Um, and then more recently, okay, let me just view sales, same grade. Okay, date sold. So more recently, looks like the sales have been closer to the in the 500. Well, I guess 425. There's a 641 auction that just happened, so that's pretty strong for an auction. Most of them are in the 500 range. Oh, here's a 990 from back in October, which seems to be an outlier. But most like in that 500 range have been the recent sales. And if you go back to the lowest, how low did these go? I see some in the 225. So that looks like it may be the lowest. Yeah, so it looks like 225 was kind of the low point during the slowdown. So all the way up to 400, 500. That's again 2 to 3, kind of mirroring kind of the interest in the Cristiano Ronaldo mark in general. Just for my own curiosity, the Wayne Rooney card from the set. Again, Wayne Rooney not licensed. England not licensed as they were. They also were not licensed in the 2014 Prizm, but yeah, interestingly, he had from the total pop standpoint, he had over 100. So like I was saying, one of the few over 100. And as far as his PSA 10s go, these, all right. So his all-time high sale for PSA 10, 153. So he has the silver card, and so then currently, one went for 34. So even at PSA 10 grade, PSA 10 graded pop of 51. I really, PSA 10, you scarcely cover the cost of grading. So I can't imagine, people are probably going to be grading these in high numbers. So what was it? I'll do one more because I'm just kind of curious. Seems like for me as a collector of Rooney, having the unlicensed kind of base card is kind of brings down the appeal of it for me as a collector. So it looks like Thierry Henry at 165 may have been the second highest graded. So where did he go? There he is. So let me search him real quickly on Card Ladder. All right. Yeah. Sorry for this. This is a very kind of data heavy episode, but it's kind of like this is kind of kind of mirrors the kind of research I like to do on a lot of these things. It's interesting to me to see kind of what collectability and market kind of reflects on these, because I don't think a lot of people are speculating a ton on these. I have seen some people speculating on these as kind of cards that are sleepers as far as because they're just such kind of a low value for playing days cards. And like I said, then they are beautiful cards. So, but this just gives you an idea of what I kind of reason I like to go to the pricing on this. It shows you what you get, kind of almost bang for a buck for these kind of these cards in certain grades. And so 56 PSA 10s. Okay, so premium. So why aren't any sales showing up? All right. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was weird. So for PSA 10 so for copies of the Henry, it looks like the highest PSA 10 copy of $135 in 2021. And as far as recently, the PSA 10 copies go for 60. So, even for the cost of grading, barely double what you would pay just for the cost of grading itself. So not a winning proposition to kind of grade these type of thing if you're looking to sell for a premium type of thing. But if you want a PSA 10 copy of a beautiful World Cup card for a great player, not going to break the bank. So yeah, like I said, this is really almost an exercise in saying, for these beautiful cards, like the kind of populations we're talking about and grades we're talking about, this is kind of what you can get for a bang for your buck collecting these cards in the pre-Prizm era. Because once you get to 2014 Prizm, the prices really escalate, especially when you talk about the numbered parallels. And it's so yeah, this maybe not be my most exciting episode, but like this is kind of like the research I like to talk about as far as like collecting goes, because this kind of tells the story when you look at the total grading pop of the popularity of Panini as a card manufacturer for soccer. Obviously, they leveled up in terms of the the quality of the brand in 2014 Prizm. So there must have been clearly been an uptick in interest in soccer card collecting. Obviously they bought the licenses to NBA and NFL, so their whole profile increased, which probably helped um, with their brand recognition leading up to 2014. But I mean, kind of these were, these cards that I talked about, along with like kind of the different league sets from the early 2000s, kind of where they were ramping up to kind of become the force they became in the 2010s, and for a good portion, the first half of the 2020s. So it's just an interesting story to tell, interesting to kind of see these numbers and all of that. But and it kind of explains to me, kind of going back and checking my ignorance on the 1998 and 2002 versions, but talking about the checklist, you can kind of get an idea for why maybe they aren't as visible in the on people's pages in the mainstream. All right, just to finish the episode, just something a little bit different, not associated with what I just talked about, but I thought it's always kind of fun to show like recent mail days pickups. As I've kind of mentioned in the past, I am a Wayne Rooney collector, and kind of I've been trying to focus mostly on his playing day stuff, and I recently got a little lot from a Wayne Rooney collector who's kind of selling a lot of his cards. And I love to pick up anything from the Topps Premier Gold era. This is from 2014 Topps Premier Gold Premier League set. This is the green out of 50 parallel. Here's from the 2015-16 Premier Gold. This is the purple out of 50. I got from the 2016-17 set. I really do like the kind of like artistic design on these, kind of a real different feel than a lot of the other Premier Gold sets. Going from art feel. This one was really fun. This is the silver out of 99, but it is the jersey match number 10 copy. Also from the 2016 Topps Premier Gold set, this is the player portrait, which is kind of fun. It's got the thick stock with the silver frame to it, numbered out of 30. So this is cool. It's in his last playing season for Manchester United, it kind of goes over all his history, him being with Everton for 2 seasons before coming to Manchester United in 2004. He was the 2009-10 Premier League Player of the Season, 5 league titles, 200 goals in all competitions in September of 2013, and he scored 178 league goals in his first 12 seasons at Old Trafford. So he was obviously a big gold scorer for United during his time with them. The other 2 I picked up, this is the multicolor from the 2016 Select Field Level, and then also the silver from the 2016 Field Level, and this actually completed my rainbow for the Wayne Rooney 2016 Field Level, level of select. So that was, the impetus behind those, and so it's cool to kind of put that rainbow together, because I really do like the Field Level version from the 2016 Select set. So fun to collect that rainbow with my PC player. But I think that'll do it for this episode of the Soccer Card Collective. A little bit of different episode, hopefully not too boring for folks, but kind of information about how I like to do research, especially with things that when I find myself ignorant on certain sets and things like that. And I like to see what I can get as far as bang for my buck for collecting, and what fun collecting strategies I could have to like go after some of these sets. So anyway, until next time, as always, stay curious and keep collecting.